Hello, guys! Welcome to the Baywatch podcast, where I try to watch every episode of the hit 80s/90s show, Baywatch. Let's get started. Forever and always, I'm always here. Today we're going to be talking about episodes 9 and 10 of the first season of Baywatch. And at first, before we start, I want to give some acknowledgements. I'm sorry that I have not recorded an episode in a while. I've been preparing for my high school reunion, which just happened and was pretty interesting. And also I've been enjoying my summer. So these are the two episodes that are up, and they are the weirdest so far of season 1 of Baywatch. And there is no lifeguarding whatsoever in these two episodes. We're literally in episode 9 and 10 of this series, and it's a wonder why it was canceled at NBC. Because there's literally no lifeguarding going on. Alright, so before we get started, another acknowledgement. I'm going to do another podcast aside from this one called I Just Watched. And after I post this episode, I'm going to post that one, and it's going to be what I think of the new Beverly Hills 90210 reboot thing, whatever it is. So without further ado, let's dive into Episode 9, The Cretin of the Shallows. Air date, December 1st, 1989. At this point in my timeline, I have not been born yet, so interesting. And this is such a weird episode. We open on an old-looking boat. There is a man whose name we later learn is Ted. I will tell you how we learn that momentarily. He is playing chess, and there is a guy who is putting makeup on, sort of like a clown or something, in another part of this boat. The guy then announces, "Hey, I beat you." The other guy, whose voice could be the inspiration for Saw or Scream, says, "No, I'm afraid you didn't." The next thing we know, as a viewer, the Ted who is playing chess, who said he thought he beat the guy, is now being chased by the guy who said he didn't beat him, whom every Baywatch fan calls the Night Puncher. It's even on IMDb, is what they call him. Eddie is on the late shift, I guess, and there's sort of like a deleted scene because when he's first seen, he's supposed to be lip-syncing to the song by the Beach Boys. We had fun, fun, fun to Her Daddy Took the T-Bird Away. And it is replaced with this weird instrumental music, but you can still see him lip-syncing to it. He has his hand on his face as he's driving. And then he sees someone run in front from the direction of... This was the most confusing part. Well, not the most confusing part. When the guy, Ted, runs across his car, it looks like he's coming from the direction of the ocean. Then when Eddie gets out of the car to see who he almost hit, the Night Puncher comes from the left of him and punches him so hard he lands into the ocean. So it's kind of confusing of what direction they came in when they were running. So Eddie is later confronted by the gang, and he says he just came out of nowhere, and I didn't get a good look at him. And everybody's wondering why he looks like he's more in pain than he is, and he says, "Oh, it's my wisdom tooth. I know they need to come out." Mitch suggests that Eddie go to a dentist he knows who used to be a lifeguard. Wouldn't that be an interesting movie or something? I mean, how does one go from saving people in the ocean to taking care of their teeth, you know? So, as we all know, I mean, dentistry and lifeguarding go hand in hand. So, after some coaxing from Gina and Craig, because in Eddie's defense, no one likes going to the dentist. In the history of the world, no one, except for Bill Murray's weird character in Little Shop of Horrors movie or musical adaptation. So I can understand where he's coming from. So it turns out that there's going to be an opening of a hotel not that far from headquarters at Baywatch. And the senator, played by the same guy that played the role of Palmer Woodward on Melrose Place, Heather Locklear's on-screen father, plays the senator. His name is Wayne Tippett. Hopefully I said that right. Anyway, he played on Melrose Place. It all comes full circle, people. Anyway, so he is financing a hotel or in the area or something. And at the hotel, we run into this guy that is angry about the contractor. Apparently, they haven't done a very good job on some things they were supposed to get done or whatever. And I don't know who these two people are. They're not important to the story. All that happens is a night puncher basically throws the guy over the stairs complaining about the contractors not doing their job. And the other woman is so shocked by what happens, she ends up fainting and not seeing the guy's face. So Goner gathers that the two murders are not related, or that this just seems like a terrible accident, that no one came up and pushed him. So later, there's like literally no one on the beach, so Jill decides she's gonna go for a swim. And while she's swimming, they discover Ted's body with a knife sticking out of it in the ocean. Later, the senator is talking to Ted's wife, and she wonders if she's next, because it seems like all the people who are dying are connected to the hotel in some way. Goner, of course, doesn't think so. He just thinks that they are just random murders that is happening on the beach. Because that sort of thing on Baywatch happens all the time. I mean, we're up to about 9 deaths right now. We had Wave Boat Girl. We had all the various bodies when Hobie and his girlfriend and that random kid who was his friend who explored the island and found some dead bodies on there. I mean, what is with Baywatch and having lots of random people die? It just doesn't make any sense. I can understand them drowning, but I mean, come on. Anyway, so the woman for some reason goes from being concerned about being the next victim to, hey, you know what? I'm gonna walk my dog late at night where I'm in few view so a killer can come and kill me. Because that's exactly what happens. And, of course, he strikes again and they don't catch him. When Goner still refuses to, put it together, Deathglare, aka Craig, decides to solve this one himself. He briefly goes and talks to Trevor, who apparently is now a certified lifeguard, and asks him if he knows anything about the people because they were members of the country club where he works. Trevor is not very helpful and says he doesn't really know that much about them. Isn't it great that Trevor's a character? So meanwhile, Eddie gets home from the dentist and begins to imagine that Gina is that one chick from Weird Science. And then Eddie later believes that him and Gina has had sex. He even has a montage where he's going around the beach thinking he sees her. I kid you not. This is literally the other plot of the episode, and it is so completely stupid. I mean, this is probably why the show was canceled, honestly and truly, I tell you. So they're having a grand opening at the hotel. Of the hotel that is opening, that has finally, I guess, been finished building. I guess the contractors got it all together, and they're having a big opening of this hotel. And Craig asks Eddie to take Gina, and Eddie is all distraught because he thinks that he's had sex with Gina. He even tries to ask Mitch and Captain Thorpe what he should do about the situation, but the way he words it is just so stupid that you can't even take it seriously. He says, "My friend of my friend thinks that he slept with his friend's wife," and he doesn't know how to tell his friend what he did. What would you do? And Mitch and Captain Thorpe were like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't follow that, what?" And I was like, yeah. So Craig is putting it all together. Apparently where the hotel was to be built used to be the site of an old woman's home who was very rich. And she said that she wasn't going to give up her land. But she died under mysterious circumstances. And a paper was signed to where she said she would allow her land to be used for the hotel. And who benefited from the building of the hotel? The senator. Who, all these people were connected to the hotel, so Craig believes that the senator is the one who has hired another guy to kill all these people because maybe they knew something he didn't want the world to know. So Craig, despite sending Eddie to the party with Gina, decides to show up there and confront the senator on what he believes is the truth. Before they get there, though, Eddie and Gina go there, and Eddie pretty much, if you're watching, it's hard to find the original episodes, so what I'm watching from is Hulu. It's on Hulu, and it's the remastered version that they have just released on DVD or something. And on this, if there's copyrighted music, what they do is they just cut the scene. They have done this on so many different things. Like, for instance, there was this episode of Beverly Hills 90210 where they were trying to integrate the schools, trying to get everybody to get along for some sort of dance, and there was supposed to be this big dance-off, and it's it starts like there's going to be something, and then there's this big giant cut, and everything is suddenly resolved, but the dance-off is gone. So, because the music that they used for it was copyrighted, and instead of replacing it with something else, they just cut the scene. So they do this with Craig and Gina. With Eddie and Gina. If you want to see the scene, you have to watch Allison's Baywatching to see the original scene. The original scene has Eddie point blank accusing Gina of raping him. Not exactly him saying that in those words, but accusing her of, I wasn't even awake, how could you do that to me? because Eddie firmly believes they had sex. But in the remastered version, that scene is cut down to when Craig shows up and comes in to accuse the senator, same thing, of all the murders, and Gina and Eddie are arguing over the conversation they had in that previous scene that we don't get to see in the remastered version, which sucks. So just at that moment, as Craig comes in, he's, confronting the senator about everything. The Night Puncher makes his presence known by shooting up the place and taking Gina as his hostage. They go to his old dirty boat, and in the ensuing gunfire, they accidentally hit a layer that releases a rope, which causes the boat to go sliding into the ocean, which causes Gina and the Night Puncher to fall off into the water. But don't worry, they're saved. Gina reassures Eddie over and over again they didn't have sex, that he was high on painkillers and everything was okay. And it turns out that the old woman whose land was given for the hotel was poisoned by someone. I don't know if it was the senator, but the Night Puncher was the woman's grandson who stood to inherit everything if she had died of natural causes. So he decided to kill everyone connected to the hotel because he felt they had killed, all of them had single-handedly killed his grandmother. Whew. What a long explanation. And that is the end of that episode. And the reason why I decided to do 2 episodes at once instead of 1, because it's more easier to do 2 than 1. The next episode we're going to be discussing is Season 1, Episode 10, Shelter Me. Air date December 8th, 1989. This is probably even worse than The Cretin in the Shallows. Because, well, you be the judge. Okay, so we start off with there is a tropical storm, okay? And this would have been an interesting episode to where we could figure out what do lifeguards do when there's a tropical storm like this? And what if somebody was out on the beach, I don't know, trying to catch a wave or something? What would they do? But instead, is it that kind of episode? No, it's not. It is a really weird episode. We start off with Goner basically rounding up all the homeless in the area to get them to a safe place to get shelter from the storm. He goes under the pier to basically see if anybody else is there, and a man and he gets shot. And this is a stupid episode because the characters are stupid. The 2 gunmen are stupid. So I'm going to call them Dumb and Dumber. Yes, they have names, but that's what I'm going to call them. There's this one whose name is actually Frank, who is the stupidest one of the 2. Frank shot him, Goner, because he thought he recognized him. But the dumbness of this dialogue and of this scene is he is either like Goner cannot see who is behind the pillar in the pier. So the fact that he was like, he acted like he recognized us, is ridiculous because he couldn't see them. Meanwhile, back at headquarters, while Mitch is getting everything ready, he calls home because for some reason, I do not know why, this is even more dumb than Goner getting shot under the pier. Mitch is having some guys work on his roof while there's a tropical storm. When he calls the first time, he, a guy is sitting down watching a soap opera and eating Mitch's food. He calls and Mitch tells him to continue to work, despite there being a tropical storm raging outside. I mean, it honestly doesn't make any sense at all why this is in there and why he as a lifeguard would tell him to keep working. So, over the course of working on the roof, one of the guys falls through, and Hobie, who's finally in this episode, he wasn't in the episode in the Cretan and the Shallows. There was no mention of him at all in that episode. Comes home and basically tells Mitch what's going on, but doesn't tell Mitch that he's not alone, that he actually has a girl there with him, played by the same girl who played Daisy in the classic episode of The Golden Girls, where she takes Rose's teddy bear Fernando for hostage. She also was in Beverly Hills Troop. Her name is Bonnie. I'm sorry, her name is Jenny Lewis. Not Bonnie. I thought her name was Bonnie. We all get things wrong sometime, but her name is Jenny Lewis. Anyway, she decides to stay with Hobie during the storm. She says her mother is going to allow her to stay over there until the storm is over. This makes absolutely no sense because I don't see any parent allowing this to happen. But she does. And according to Baywatch trivia that I've learned, we never see this girl again in any other episode. So, yet another one of Hobie's love interests that pop in and then pops right back out with no mention of her ever again. I don't even remember her name in this episode. Oh, her name is Alex. Okie dokie then. I don't remember him saying her name was Alex, but okay. They end up staying in and watching movies, and Hobie even tells her a scary story about a half man, half monkey because she always fed him bananas, and one day he got out and ate her. Yeah, I don't know why he would tell her that story, but a flash of lightning ends up happening and they end up kissing. In the end, she just leaves and that's it. End of Hobie's subplot. Meanwhile, the writers have decided, hey, guess what? We're going to make Shawnee and Eddie a couple that the teenagers out there can root for. Because now, up to this point, Eddie has been with the one girl who had a mobster boyfriend, and Shawnee's been with that abusive lawyer guy. So now it's time to get them together. When the episode begins, Gina wants to have a party, even though there is a tropical storm going on. And I guess she sent out Shawnee and Eddie to get some groceries, but before that, her and Craig have an argument. Apparently, they're going to go see his parents next weekend, and she wants to go see her parents. She then accuses him of not being spontaneous, and he decides to act like a baby by walking out the door and saying, "There, that's spontaneous." Ooh. He then goes to headquarters and asks Mitch if he is spontaneous. Mitch basically says, "No, you have everything planned out to the last detail, buddy." Ah, yes, the two that are best friends. So Gina decides to go to headquarters to surprise Craig by being spontaneous herself and catching him in the shower, leaving Shawnee and Eddie to fend for themselves alone in Gina and Craig's apartment, where they slowly but surely realize they love each other. They even have a fake montage, or they have a montage where of their couple moments, as well as playing in the water. Meanwhile, 100 years later, Goner is still in one shot. He gets up and goes over on his back and stops gargling water, but then when we return back to him, he's back on his face. Eventually, he's able to get up and say through the radio that he has been shot, but no one hears him. Meanwhile, Mitch and Craig go out in the truck to pick up the rest of the homeless that are stuck in a bathroom. They end up finding the two guys, Dumb and Dumber, who shot Goner earlier, and the two guys try to straggle behind, but Mitch says, "Everybody has to go. We're just going to go to headquarters and we'll find you someplace to go from there." So they end up going. At headquarters, Robert, the dumb one of the two, who shot Goner in the first place, has a liking for Jill when she helps him with his face, because he has a cut on his face, which we don't really know how that happened. So everything seems to be going fine. Nobody knows who they are. I mean, not even the show has told the viewer who they are. And then Jill goes to call the operator to see if there's a landline, and Frank, the dumbest one, basically thinks that she has found out who they are and basically takes headquarters hostage, including Gina. So then, 100 years still later, Goner finally makes his way to a lifeguard stand, shoots his way in, uses the phone to call into headquarters. Mitch disguisedly says, "Yes, they're here. You're our only hope." No pressure or anything. So now they're all being held hostage by these two guys, and Mitch pretty much knows who they are, and I don't know how. He says, "These are the two guys that have escaped from prison. They killed a prison guard. They're wanted for murder." And it's like, okay. I mean, even the other guy of the two is like, "You need to stop shooting people. They didn't recognize us. They didn't even know who we were." Yeah, even us as the audience didn't know who you were. Meanwhile, back at Gina and Craig's, Shawnee and Eddie have sex in front of the fireplace. Boy, the things that fireplace has seen. Officially signifying that they're a couple. Meanwhile, back at headquarters, one of the guys, Goner, finally shows up and realizes he can't get in. One of the guys decides to go downstairs and wants to take Gina with him as insurance, but there's a tree or something that hits the window, knocking it in and causing people to duck for cover. So instead, he takes Jill. While they're down there, Goner somehow got through the garage and subdues the less dumb of the two, and then disappears from the garage, appears in the doorway, and shoots Frank. But the thing about this scene is that he didn't see them, so how does he know that he's shooting the right person? He could be shooting Mitch for all he knows. But Baywatch, everything works out in the end. And the day is saved thanks to Goner. And Eddie and Shawnee are now a couple. Yay, that's the end of that episode. In conclusion, these two episodes are really weird. I mean, there was literally no lifeguarding being done at all in any of these episodes. I mean, it would be nice to see what lifeguards do during storms in California like that. But unfortunately, no. We're stuck in a hostage situation. I mean, I guess the writers were just having a hard time of what direction they wanted the show to go in. But anyway, that's Baywatch. I hope you enjoyed, and it's still on Hulu for your enjoyment. And I'll be watching more I got more episodes coming. Forever and always, I'm always here.